Test, test. It's the 16th of January 24, and I'm just thinking, it's woke finished, you know. And I'm thinking that because what Mark Zuckerberg did, what was it, a week or two ago? He said he was going to do away with third-party fact checkers, and he's just going to do community notes like Elon Musk is doing on X, which I find pretty useful, you know, to get the other supposed view, or it's supposed to be facts or whatever. I don't know, I find it more useful than people getting banned, because really the way it worked out was people were getting banned, you know, and mostly on what are regarded as a right, although I don't think a right issue. Say something like immigration. I mean, to me that's existential, and you're not allowed to talk about it. And that was getting tighter and tighter, you know, because remember the countries, some of the countries have been bringing in, quote, hate laws and that, but I'm wondering if that's woke's finished now, because they've taken quite a few hits, you know. They've taken, there was that vote in Ireland, which was, I don't know if it was straightforward to change the constitution. It was a referendum, but indirectly it was a sort of way about mass migration, I think, and they lost it. That was at recent Taoiseach, and he resigned just after that. And then in Scotland, and he was a big woke guy, Ireland must accept the natives becoming a minority, basically, and becoming a majority of the global south, with new traditions and stuff. But the same sort of thing happened in Scotland with Nicola Sturgeon, really. There was that thing about somebody who went to jail and changed their gender. Was that what it was, or was that some sort of policy? But anyway, yeah, I think it was that. Native SNP voters didn't like it. It seems too much. It was going down badly in the polls, but it wasn't tried at an election or anything. But she just suddenly decided to resign. And to me, it's like she and the Taoiseach know how it goes and know that these sort of things you should be just sort of winning easily, and if not, it means there's going to be a trend against you, what you're thinking. Because we saw this with Brexit as well. I mean, Brexit was almost 50-50, so you would think if the Remain side felt so confident, then we're thinking, well, we should really have another vote, because it was so inconclusive, and probably they'll just come on board to that. But I think what happened actually was either it was just to do with constituency voting. They could see, well, the next election we're going to lose. And they did. They lost the Northern Wall. Labour lost the Northern Wall. I would say that was because of the Remain and Keir being the Remain minister, really, and wanting a second referendum. His policy, which Jeremy Corbyn followed. I think that was something, really. But even then, Jeremy Corbyn in 2019 got more votes than Keir Starmer got with his big victory last year. So, yeah, and I'm just thinking, like, so it was 50-50, and you're thinking, well, that's not very obvious, is it? And then I thought, well, maybe it's the British natives voted really for it. But apparently, according to Grok, it was about 53-47. So I don't know if that's correct, 53-47. I thought it might even be higher. So maybe it was just the Labour MPs looked at it and thought, well, currently the British natives make up most of the seats, make up most of the first past the post majority. So it doesn't feel like we've got them on board, you know. So we're just going to have to pretend that we don't want to remain anymore, that sort of thing. So that was a sort of woke thing. Even though that was a woke thing, nothing happened from it, you know. It was like 2020 when we actually left. It was 4 years or something. And when we left, Boris Johnson done away with really Europeans coming to Britain and instead made it from the global south, basically. I think about 90%. And not only that, he made it the highest numbers ever, like 1.5 million each year. So there was something like 4, 5, 6 million newcomers from the global south over the last 6 years. And Westminster Council are actually looking for it. I can't remember what the job is. Somebody mentioned it, Dan Wooten, the other night. They're looking for some sort of very high officer in their hangway, and they must be from the Global South or another minority, it said. And because this Global South, this is a word they like, or global minority, majority, the global majority. It's funny how they use the word global. They don't use the word global. At least Global South's been a bit more accurate, but when they're saying global, that makes it sound like white Americans, you know. Is it? I mean, I don't know how many white Americans moved to Britain or got British citizenship here recently. I wouldn't surprise me if it was like 1,000 or 2,000 or something, you know. Less than that even. Or even any type of American. So, yeah, anyway, so Brexit was the start, although it was still, wokery was still way. And I remember like 4 years ago, Noel Gallagher said something like, and I'm a bit fed up with all this woke crap or something like that, he said. And I thought at the time, that's him finished, basically. And luckily it wasn't, even though I'm not a big fan of him, but I like listening to him and Liam talk. Well, not a big fan of their music or whatever, but yeah, so I thought that was him finished. That shows you how scary it was, basically. And then also it felt like in YouTube everyone was getting banned, you know, and it felt like anyone who talked about immigration in the wrong way, if they weren't open borders fanatics, or anyone that talked about Palestine, that was what the left have to watch out for, because the establishment won't accept talk about Palestine, even now, really. Even on the left, you know. I mean by that Keir Starmer and likes, I don't mean the far left or whatever. Yeah, and I thought everyone was going to get chucked off YouTube. But now it feels different. Now it feels like it's going the other way. And it feels as if it's because when Elon Musk bought Twitter and basically made it quite a safe space. Not totally, because he's demoted Laura Loomer's premium account or something, you know, so because she was going on about those H visas over in America. And someone was explaining that the H visas are really, Sam Bidwell was explaining that the H visas are really just a bit of a con really. They're just a sham really. And the real one for the quote genius or quote ultra rich money makers is an O visa, and only about say 2,000 of them get handed out to America each year. These H visas are just sort of a loophole, you know, because these people are all know all the loopholes basically, whereas we British natives are totally oblivious, you know. We're just thinking, we're not allowed to think of how people ended up here, you know. So I'm just wondering if that's wokery sort of really on its knees now, because I see wokery as white supremacist really, because open borders is a very woke thing, but female gen mute isn't, although that happens more and more once you have an open border. I mean, that's now a Scottish tradition, a British tradition. It wasn't before 1947, and it seems to happen more and more, especially the more they vote Labour, SNP, Lib Dem and Greens and that. And I'm just using that as one example. You get arranged marriage and things like that. These are all now British traditions, and I'm presuming that the woke don't approve of these, you know. And so, to me, that makes it white supremacist, you know, because you're telling other Brits, no, you can't, that's unacceptable, that's not British values. Because I keep hearing about Cooper and Jess Phillips and that talk about British values. And I'm assuming they don't mean arranged marriage, or maybe they do, I don't know, but arranged marriage is now a British value, since 1947. It wasn't before, but it is now. So, it's quite happy, because in Scotland they just brought through that Humsa's hate law last year. Ireland was bringing one in. I don't know if they actually scrapped it or delayed theirs. Wales was bringing one in. And then in Wales, they had all the open border stuff and all the accompanying stuff, which to me looks like white supremacists, really, if they don't include arranged marriage as part of that. But they brought in that 20 mile an hour zone thing. And also Wales is on turbo boost like Scotland to make the Welsh a minority, the native Welsh a minority, make it a global south majority. Never tried before. As Keir would call it, an open border experiment. And that's another thing, with Keir saying that speech last November, because if you think of it, in August he was locking people up, white people up for doing tweets, really. And he said in his speech at the time that the people of Rotherham who were rioting were the busting far right. So to him they were the working class, traditional Labour voters of the area, mum, dad, children, all very, very angry. Because to me, those riots were people out of control with anger, which is how a riot can occur, you know what I mean? If people are really angry about something, yeah, I mean, they've been pushed too far, basically. And yet, 2 or 3 months later, Keir's saying that open borders is an experiment, especially by Boris, which is true. And it was done by design, and he said that, well, the message was it was a mistake and terrible. I mean, to me from 1948 it is, but yeah, I don't know if he's just talking about Boris or what, but anyway, Boris has been the worst of a lot though. So, yeah, so for Keir to say that in November, and the turnaround when he was locking people up in August, he brought in Stasi emergency laws where people were to plead guilty within a day of being charged, and they'd be jailed within 3 days, and they'd get 2, 3, 4 years, one gets 7 years. And yet there was one Muslim man who had a fake Kalashnikov in his house, a fake Muslim British man, and he was saying, the EDL, where are the EDL, bring them on. Well, the EDL were disbanded 10 years ago, and I don't know, it'd be interesting if a journalist asked him where he heard about the EDL, because Keir mentioned that in his speech. He said that this is a busting far right, the EDL or whatever, even though they were gone 10 years before. So I don't know, I mean, Sue Gray went soon after that, and they brought in a new guy, Mick. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. Sue was meant to be the brilliant Tory thing for the COVID thing or whatever. I mean, I'm not bothered about anything like that. It's just funny how they get false gods and these sort of things, you know, like Dominic Cummings and the like. But, yeah, so I'm wondering if Vote's finished, because I was thinking, really, I'm going to have to go to Rumble or, you know, places like that. And even MPs were saying, female Labour MPs were saying, and we need to look at Rumble and that other one. It's not just YouTube that we need to... So they were really wanting to ban everything. But now they all seem to have been swept aside, you know, because the thing about the grooming gangs, Labour all voted against the inquiry. But now a week later, Andy Burnham, Sarah Champion, and another, the Rotherham Labour MPs have all come, they say they want one now. So for a week later they were voting against it, or whatever. Not Andy Burnham, because he's a mayor. But, yeah, it's interesting. I'm wondering if that's Woke finished, which would be, you know, really hard. I shouldn't say finished. I should say it's not got a sort of Saddam Hussein vibe about it anymore, you know. You can actually talk free speech. And they might even be able to talk about Palestine, who I'm very sympathetic towards. But, because Keir Starmer won't really like to talk about that. But, yeah. So I'm wondering if this is good. And then Mark Zuckerberg being the final thing, even though I don't know who uses Facebook now, probably older people or whatever. But, because he said, I think he actually met with Trump and he said he's doing away with all that. He's going to let him be more free speechy type. He's doing away with fact checkers who ban you, the third party ones. Yeah, so I'm wondering if that's Saddam Hussein being overthrown, really, you know. But, and even with Keir, Keir done the exact opposite. He went from one speech where he was locking people up in a day or two for 3 or 4 or 5 years for a tweet, to 3 months later saying it's been an open border experiment done by design, you know. So, and then, yeah, it just feels like, and also everyone's just, as I've done, for a protest vote you need to go to reform, really. I think all British natives will end up voting reform. They'll just say, this is going to be a disaster. We need to vote reform, because people have come for the British Native Society, but if we're a minority, it's not going to be a British Native Society, you know. And things like Rabbie Burns and Burns Night and the bagpipes and that are going to be white supremacist and offensive, you know. So, yeah, I'm hoping this is a sort of change. And the way he expresses it is voting reform. You know, reform's what they want to do about mass migration is rubbish, but symbolically you're telling people, no, I want something done with it. You know, I want it stopped completely. Reform aren't good enough, but I'm showing you I'm not going to vote the normal way. There's usually the normal thing is Tories or Labour getting to power, so you're just doing the same all the time. You've got to vote reform, even if I don't agree. I don't even know their economic policies are. I don't agree. One issue I'm voting on, vote reform, and I think all British natives will end up the same, especially female SNP, Green, Labour voters, especially if they're very woke at the moment. Yeah, it just seems the woke's lost its Saddam Hussein power, you know, its Stasi power, especially with Mark Zuckerberg doing that sort of 2 weeks ago. I never thought I would see the day where that would happen. I'm wondering why he's doing it. Is he doing it because it wouldn't surprise me if it's just for money? Because what I thought with YouTube is once Elon Musk came along with X, I find this myself, I was sort of leaving YouTube, I was trying Rumble, and so, but then it felt, oh hang on, these people aren't getting banned, and it's not just ones that I agree with, you know, it's ones that I disagree with, say, the Grey Zone on Ukraine, or the Flintoff show, or whatever it is, Chris Flintoff or whatever, people like that, people talking about Palestine in favour of it. I mean, what's her name, Iverson, she's really good on Palestine, Katie Halper, and but the Iverson one, I think she's really interesting, because she seems to be a sort of Republican, a Reagan on tax, or a Libertarian on tax, but she's got sympathy for Palestine, you know, as is, which I think should be the normal, what I would call American values, or British values, you know, but, so, yeah, it's very interesting what's happening, and of course Mark Zuckerberg done that, that's why I'm making this. Is woke finished? Like I say, the big thing was probably Elon Musk, and then Ireland losing that referendum, Wales, the old guy's chucked it, although his wife died recently, but he's chucked it, the old white woke guy. Nicola Sturgeon just suddenly resigned, you know, so it's interesting, but the main thing for me was Elon Musk taking over X. I mean, I don't agree with him and everything, and it can be a total troll, actually. When you think of what he called that guy in Thailand, just as I'm surprised he didn't get sued, actually, but, and now he's sort of demoted Laura Loomer, because she's going on about old visas, and, yeah, no, he's another sort of dictator guy, but at the moment he's on the free speech era, you think he is at the moment. It's Syria at the moment, you know, but it doesn't feel like it's going to go bad, or a dictatorship or whatever, but it probably is, you know. Yeah, so maybe that's why YouTube, maybe they just looked at the numbers, I think. They thought, oh no, we're going to lose all the Trump voters, we're going to lose, and Facebook was thinking the same. We're going to lose all the non-woke, especially white ones. I think that's what they worry about. But now with Elon Musk doing that, they've had to sort of abandon wokery, really. So, yeah, let's hope it is, you know, because it was really scary, you know. And even Nigel Farage, about 4 months ago, he was asked on, I think it was GB News or something, are you afraid that you might get arrested for a tweet or something, or jailed for a tweet? And he said yes. And I think he was right to say that. And it's just like those gangs of for the children, like the white schoolgirls and whatever. The social workers and police were probably scared of being called the R word, and in my opinion they were quite right to be scared, because it was a terrifying situation, and it still is for that, but at least wokery is no longer a dictatorship, really, that's tightening the noose. Well, for the moment anyway, so, but we'll see how that goes.